Hey guys, Brandon Kowallis here, Director of the Salt Lake Community College Concurrent Enrollment Program. And today, in this episode, we're going to be diving a little bit deeper on a topic that we covered in our last episode, which is our liaison model. So in the last episode, we talked about how our liaison model is structured. It's a little bit different than any other model out there across the nation. And we talked about the whys behind why exactly we structure our model the way we do. And if you remember, I mentioned that there are two types of liaisons. There are college experience liaisons, and then there are the content liaisons who are full-time faculty. So today, we're going to be talking to a couple of our college experience liaisons. We're going to be talking to Robert Thorne, who is our STEM liaison. He works with anything STEM related or science related. So even biological sciences like geology, physics, computer science, and mathematics. And mathematics is where his master's degree, his expertise is. So he has a master's in mathematics. Our other liaison, college experience liaison we're going to be talking to is our social sciences and business liaison, David Curl. So David oversees classes that deal with business, so business, marketing, finance, accounting. He also works with the social science realm, so family and human studies, education, and other classes. In his background, he has a master's in education, and he's working towards some other advanced degrees. So anyway, those are the two liaisons. I'm gonna spend some time talking with them so you can get from their perspective sort of how this model functions and whether or not it's working or if it's not working. So with that said, let's go ahead and jump over, and we're going to talk to these two individuals and learn a little bit about the program from their perspective. Maybe you could share with us sort of what your experience has been over the past few years in working with concurrent enrollment instructors as a college experience liaison. You've been here for 2 years now?
Yeah, about 2 years.
Okay, so what's it sort of been like? I mean, what's your experience?
A lot of it's been answering questions over emails, visiting with teachers, helping them solve whatever needs to be solved, or if they're doing well, just to talk through it. I think that's what the teachers like to do. They like to talk through, how can I improve? How can I do better? It could be just the small things, could be something they haven't thought of before. They may have thought it from a high school perspective, but they want to know, what is it like to do a college class?
I've had a really kind of extraordinary opportunity to look into our high school partners' classrooms, to watch them at work, both directly teaching and instructing, but also to see them at work kind of counseling and helping students purposefully develop those skills that will help them both in that moment in the classroom, but also in the future as they continue their education. I've really come to appreciate how thoughtfully and purposefully our high school partners are doing this work. And I've worked then with them and with their administrators and with their faculty partners to help them focus their efforts, to help them reflect on their efforts, and to help them make sometimes really subtle changes and sometimes maybe more overt and direct changes to their practices to help kind of tighten their focus. I've also been able to use information that I've gotten from talking to our partners and observing with them. I've been able to use that information, that data, to develop resources to sort of help them as a whole body. Again, to help them kind of draw their focus in, to help them to maybe consider perspectives that they hadn't seen in their classrooms, and to help them kind of improve their students' experience as well. And so this is a process that I found to be very rewarding, because I often think, wow, I wish I had known that when I was teaching, and how could I put this in place in my own classroom? I really have been impressed with the collegiality of our high school partners and their interest in improving, and their interest in sort of being the best that they can be as a means of helping their students improve and have a better experience.
Cool. And maybe you can sort of give us a sense of what it looks like on a day-to-day basis for you. I mean, what do you do? And I know there's cycles and stuff throughout the year, but just generally sort of on a day-to-day basis, what does your job entail?
Okay, so generally entails like during the actual school year, I'm visiting teachers at least one per day. And then I come back and set up more schedules. I look at to see, okay, who needs my help more? Who should I visit next?
Do you have sort of a prioritization system then?
Yes, so new teachers first because they haven't done Concurrent already, and then I move my way until I get to those that have done it for a few years.
So on a day-to-day basis, I'm primarily interested in being available to our high school partners and to our faculty partners, and sort of being available to anybody who might need my help. So that involves being kind of connected through email, through phone call, and also being available to kind of step out of what I might consider to be my space, maybe at the college, to go to a high school classroom, to go to a faculty liaison's office, to be present in a meeting, to be available for a phone call. So I find that my work has a kind of plastic quality where I don't feel like I'm ever really in one place at a time. I'm often kind of moving and occupying kind of a dynamic space, I guess, between 50 plus high schools and sites. But it really revolves around open communication, where I hear from one partner, perhaps at the college or perhaps at one of our high school sites, who says, hey, I have a problem. And I'm then able to interface with someone who has a solution to get them talking with each other as a means of resolving that. So for example, right now I have an instructor who, for a variety of reasons, missed an important deadline. So she reached out via email. I was then able to put her in touch with one of our office administrative assistants to get that missed deadline resolved. And it's that kind of work, sort of intensified and blown up, that's been very satisfying.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you face when it comes to your role and responsibilities?
Biggest challenge, I think, is just making sure I can get in contact with the teachers, and sometimes providing feedback that would be worthy for them, that is actually valuable to them. Mm-hmm. And every teacher is different. Some want to know, okay, what did I do wrong so I can improve it? Some are like, okay, what did I do really well? I've had teachers that's like, you got to give me 3 things I did well, 3 things I did bad. And I have to think of 3 things both ways, which is really challenging because could have gone really, really well that day that I visited, or if it's been a bad day, it's like, oh, now I got to tell them what they've done wrong too. So some like lots of feedback, some it's like, this is an evaluation, let's just get this over with. So.
Do you feel like it's changed over the years? Like at first, maybe they looked at you in your role as a college experience liaison with, I don't know if hesitancy, or they were a little leery of what you had to offer, but now they sort of see the value in what you're doing a little bit more and approach you now differently. Do you find that at all?
Yeah, I think more teachers approach me more now than they did when I first started. They're more willing to say, okay, I don't understand this, can you help me with this? And whenever I see their questions, I like to answer them as soon as I can, as soon as I have the answer.
One of the most consistent challenges that I've encountered in this role has been responding to the kinds of little problems that follow from human communication. Where, for example, I worked with an instructor who the first time that I reached out to them, I'd say maybe the first 4 or 5 times that I reached out to them by email or by phone, they just kind of totally blew me off. They didn't respond, they didn't answer, they let it go to voicemail, and the voicemail was unreturned. And so I found myself at the school where they teach. I was visiting another instructor. I had a few minutes before my next appointment, so I just ducked my head in and said, hey, I'm David, I'm from the college. I wanted to, meet you face to face. They said something that I think they might not say today. They were a little direct in a way that was not super professional. And what I found is their conception of of the college was based on something they'd heard from someone who'd heard it from someone else. And there was this kind of unpleasant, kind of ineffective human communication that was going on that really changed as we started talking to each other. And once this instructor was able to kind of put that aside and able to see me as being someone who would help rather than hinder them, they become sort of one of my staunchest allies at that school, and it become a real asset to our program. And so I find that that's been something that has not been necessarily consistent, but that has been a major part of my role, which is to step in and to say, rather than what can SLCC do to make your day worse, it's, hey, here are all the things that we can do to make your day better. And I feel like as instructors have come to see me as being part of a process of improvement, they've warmed to our program in general.
What for you? What are some of the most exciting things that you have sort of seen in your role?
I like to see the teachers, they do new things that I haven't thought of, especially since I teach math, to see different math ideas, because things I haven't thought of. It's exciting to see classes that I haven't taken myself, figure out, okay, now I can connect what I saw in that class to this class and connect them together. I think that's really exciting. And
classes like what,
like
for
computer
example?
science. I don't do a whole lot of computer science. I've never done drafting. I've never done any of that stuff. So it's good to see, okay, what is happening in each class, see how they're done differently, because one class is not the same as another class. And everyone does it differently. And maybe something I saw in one class will help someone in another class.
So with these classes that you are not like the content expert in, what value add do you feel like you take to those instructors?
I think I give them a sense, okay, what does a college class look like? What are students' responsibilities? What is the teacher's responsibility? How do you transition from teacher-based learning to student-based learning? I think that's where the value comes in, helping them to make that transition so the students are more responsible.
You know, the most exciting thing I see is every time we do visits now, I have a moment where it's just sort of like this kind of like Christmas morning moment where the instructor and I will sit down and we open up their student evaluations, and I can sort of put aside what I've seen, what I think is cool, or what I think is maybe improvable in the process, and I can see where the students are able to clearly express what's working for them or what they'd like to see in the classroom. And the amount of positivity in those comments is really, it's quite encouraging, because I feel to an extent, I want to kind of be careful saying this over an open mic, but the students are so articulate in what they feel is working for them in that classroom, and the ways in which they've been challenged, and the ways in which they've been helped, and the ways in which they've been stretched, and how they've grown, that it's really easy for me to sort of step back and say to the teachers, look, this is the fruit of your work. And to think about what that looks like then in 5 years or 10 years as those students go on and complete their degrees and go on and move into the workforce is really very gratifying to see to be able to see where that began, and to know how intensely the labor is matched to those results.
So last question. Overall, how has this changed to a split model with the liaisons where you've got content and then you've got the college experience? So we split the positions. How do you feel like that has worked out for both you and then the instructor? I know you weren't here like before, but you get a sense.
Well, that's been interesting to think about, because as you said, I wasn't here for a faculty liaison only model. I experienced that as a high school teacher, and in my experience as a high school teacher was kind of disastrous, because the faculty liaison basically said, hey, you've got a syllabus and that looks great, go for it. And that led to some real problems that I think would have been resolved if I had known I had somebody, this is like the most egotistical thing I could say, but if I'd known I had somebody like me to call, I could have resolved those problems beforehand. But one of the things I've been struck by is how our faculty partners have tuned into the utility of this model. And that is that a number of faculty liaisons can now come to me and say, hey, I'm pretty busy with the classes I'm teaching right now. Do you mind reaching out to this instructor? Here are the ways in which we're concerned about them. What do you think about this? And so I feel like what I'm able to bring to this partnership is an extra layer of support or security or direction, and I can say, here's what I've seen, and I can be an advocate for the instructor and an advocate for our faculty partners. I feel like the utility of this model has been that our instructors now have, simply put, an extra set of hands, eyes, ears to fall back on, and an extra place to get support from, and an extra set of eyes in their classroom to say, hey, here's what I think is working, and here's what you might try differently. It's been interesting now. So in a second year of visits, it's been interesting to see ways in which instructors have put some of that feedback into practice, and hopefully then to be able to point them to their student feedback to say, do you see an improvement from their perspective as well?
I think they're receiving more feedback because I keep hearing that. I like having the conversation. I like hearing the feedback. I wasn't getting that quite as often. So they, even if I can't give them the advice, just having the conversation is helpful for them. It makes them reflect on what they're doing. It's like, oh, maybe I can do that better. Because I'm invested in what they're doing. I want to see them succeed. I want to see their students succeed. And that's my main focus, because it gives them the extra, I think, what does a college class look like? Mm-hmm. I don't know if they got quite that as much before.
So before it may have been just about, are you teaching content accurately? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily, are you doing that and are you delivering this college experience? Because you can easily teach. That you can teach the same content as a high school experience, and you can teach it as a college experience.
Yeah, you can definitely tell when they're just, here's the content and that's what they're focused on. Here's how we're doing it in the high school versus, okay, here's what a college class will be like. I've seen teachers, as part of my thing, they actually offer those college hints. I know that one class I went to, students were not used to reading a textbook. Mm-hmm. So for the first 5 minutes, that's what they went over. How do you use a textbook?
So the teacher talked about this.
Yes. I've seen places where they went deeper, like we would expect on the college. Okay, let's take what we know and dig deeper into what we learned. And some it's less, I've seen it's like, here's the content and it kind of, here's the materials I'm working from, and they don't go any deeper than that. I think the teachers actually do need to have both, so they understand both. Okay, I need to be able to have the knowledge to teach the students, but I also need to help them realize this is a college class. Whereas if they're just combined, they may not have that type of thing. They may not realize, oh, I need it to be a college class. I need it to feel like a college class. It may be, I'm teaching the content, so this class is good.
And why do you feel like that's important?
I feel it's important because I think students, when they come to college, and this is from also teaching myself, mm-hmm. they think it should be exactly like high school. And they continue to have the same study skills they have for high school, and it doesn't work anymore. And then they're like, there must be something wrong with the class. But I think students need to realize they need to it's a partnership between the college instructor and the student. It's not 90% instructor, 10% student. So I think they need to, this is a good way to help them ease into that transition.
All right, so hopefully that gives you an idea of, sort of why we are passionate about this model that we have sort of adopted here when it comes to working with our instructors, with our liaisons. As always, if you have any comments, any suggestions, any ideas that you want to post those below the video to share them with the broader community and get some conversation going. And as always, remember that nothing is impossible if you're resourceful, if you think outside the box, and last of all, if you have the courage to act.